Aloha and welcome to my channel. I'm JayDreamerZ. Tonight we're doing a segment called Truth in Movies, where we're going to break down the esoteric truth and talk about the esoteric and occult symbolism in the Netflix movie Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight. This is it's scary month as of right now during the live stream, Halloween month for some of us. So in honor of that, I wanted to choose some scary movies to break down. This one's your classic tale. I like this one a lot. It's actually a Polish movie, which is really interesting when we take a look at the symbolism. But I really like the classic tales of following a group of kids on their adventure, usually when they go to try to find a treasure like the Goonies or something, or they go to camp. Oftentimes we're going to see a lot of the camp symbolism when it comes to what it's like for us to wake up in the post-apocalyptic world. Basically, we go to camp, right? We are given a break, but we're going to take a look at all the symbolism in this movie, Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight, starting now. Good to see everybody in the chat too. Welcome everyone. All right, so we start off in the woods. It shows you all of these trees everywhere. Oftentimes, when they show you that something's taking place in the woods, symbolically, especially if there's an element of horror or suspense or magic or mystery, this is the quintessential woods. There are 4 lands at the North Pole on ancient and older maps, and those are said by the legends and the myths to contain a magical forest, that it's a magical area that's imbued with power, because power comes up out of the earth in that particular area. So we start things off by seeing that we're deep in the forest. Then they show you this guy. Now, who is this guy? Real quick, he's not really a main character, but this is how the movie starts off. You're going to see in a moment, this is the postman. Oftentimes, also in the movies, when they show you the postman, it's symbolic of it's a personification of the world post, or the axis mundi, which is a light that shoots up from the North Pole and other places too, that seems to touch the sky every other apocalyptic cycle. So right here you see the postman, and he's riding a bicycle. Symbolically, he's in between these 2 circles right here, which are symbolically, it's like these swirls of plasma on the Squatter Man figure that shoots up. It's a plasma formation in the sky. I'll give you an example of that here in just a minute. Take a look. As you can see, the postman's getting out his mail, and it says right here, it's hard to see on your side of things, but it says post 88. So post 88. 88 esoterically we've talked about before, right? The letter in ancient Phoenician for the number 8 is Aleph Bet Gemel Dalet He Vav Zayin Het. So Het is it's Het, which is a symbol for a boundary, right? Usually it's an upright marker or a boundary. It also implies a fence or something that separates, right? And there's 2 of them in a row on his bag here, because he is the postman. He is the Squatter Man plasma projection up out of the earth every other apocalyptic cycle. And on each side of him are what's known as the Pillars of Hercules, or 2 other witnesses, 2 other beams that shoot up on either side to create and complete an electrical arc at the top of our world. So those are the boundary markers. People have said that, you know, once you go past those Pillars of Hercules, or the boundary markers, that you're no longer on the surface of the world. You're now headed deep into the hollow recesses of the world itself. So we've got the postman. Also take a look at his hat too. I want to zoom into the hat there. Can you see that? That right there is the symbol of the phoenix on his hat. The phoenix and also eagles are portrayed in this way too. It actually comes from the phoenix. Typically when you see a bird that's sort of spread eagle like that, with its wings off to the side and it's only facing one direction, and then its legs are sticking out to the side like that, birds don't do that naturally. Okay, so let me share with you where that symbol came from. If you see a bird like that in real life, it's probably because it was ran over by a car or something. Birds don't normally just spread out their wings and shoot their legs way out to the side like that. That's called the Squatter Man symbol, right? The symbol of the Squatter Man. It's a plasma formation. When the plasma shoots out from the sides and then straight up from the middle, it also branches out towards the top. And then I'll show you an example of the bird's head here too. So this is from one of my videos where I talk about the plasma volcano at the North Pole. You can see that people have created stories based on the images that they saw, these plasma formations that happen every other cycle in our sky. At the top, this would be like the head of the bird, and then its wings shoot out. It's also seen as the thunderbird as well. So here's a little diagram that I drew of it. This in the middle would be like Mount Meru. This would be the Ruhus Negra, or the Black Mountain, or Black Plasma Volcano in the middle of the world. The main beam shoots straight up from there, and then off to the sides we have the anode and the cathode respectively that connect, creating an electrical arc there. And then it shoots up and branches back out at the top as it follows a toroidal field. So that is why the arms are always straight up, or the wings, kind of curve outward or upward, and why the bird's face is always off to one side too, because the bird's head on the top of this cosmic stick figure, it's basically a hole where the world has depressurized at the apex of our world, or the apex of our sky. And that hole will leak out red plasma, which is just on the other side of it. So as it leaks out, it swirls with the wind, creating what looks like a beak that comes off to one side, or a tongue, or a beard, etc. All right, so let's follow this postman and see what happens on our scary adventure. So the postman's just delivering his mail. If we take a look at the word post too real quick, it literally does mean an upright beam, right? So this represents symbolically the blue beam. He's wearing blue, and he's the postman as well. But it means a rod, a pole, a beam. We're talking about the rod god of so many countries and cultures, etc. So he knocks at the door, and he starts to get really curious, and he wants to take a look around because nobody's answering the door. This is pretty classic. Now, I want to point this out. Horror movies, I believe, specifically give us tips for surviving in the post-apocalyptic world, or surviving through the apocalypse, right? Because it's based off of, ultimately, the quintessential scariest thing that has happened to shock humanity all at one time, so that these memories live and survive together in our collective subconscious, right? So the postman becomes really curious, and the movie's going to give us some tips about how to survive. One of those tips is not to be too curious. Also, the postman symbolically representing that blue beam, right? Every other cycle, the blue beams shoot out from inside of the earth, looking like they're holding up the sky. But the cycle after that, those beams will retract, and therefore the postman will be seen as dying, right? As being sacrificed, as some wise god or goddess that has been kidnapped and pulled down into the underworld, or has died and gone down into the depths of the earth for a time, ultimately to return. So the postman's being really curious. I already knew when I was watching this movie, I'm like, he's going to die. He has to die. We're going to kick off the apocalypse the right way. The apocalypse starts when that postman is born, or when that postman dies, basically, right? When he shows up or when he disappears. So he's at this house, which symbolically on a small scale represents our world. And he's about to, he's listening that there's some screaming and stuff. And the character is just acting like he's just concerned, right? When really he's got no business checking out what's going on. There's this groaning sounds coming from someone's basement. He takes the liberty to just open it up, He's going to be the hero. And he says, grab my hand, grab my hand. And he's down there, and he gets sucked down underneath the house, pulled down under the ground. And he's screaming and stuff. And that's how we start this movie off. They're letting us know right away, this is an apocalyptic scenario, right? Not all movies that reference the apocalypse have to really be about the world is ending, right? The world could be ending on a small scale. They show us these things in various cosms. There's the macrocosmic, there's the microcosmic, there's the mesocosm where we live and understand too. So there's now a school bus full of these teenagers, and they're all going to a special camp. So they go deep into the heart of the forest. I like following these movies that are about a group of younger kids or teenagers or whatever that go on these adventures, like Stand By Me and stuff, because symbolically, it helps me to understand that the movie's referencing us. It's about us, right? It's not about a group of kids or whatnot. We are the kids We used to live to be hundreds upon hundreds of years old. Even any of you watching this right now, whether live or in the past or in the future, it doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter how many wrinkles you might have. You are still a child in comparison to our potential to live extremely long lifespans. So the movies and Hollywood, they tend to drop that breadcrumb, and they reference us. They reference the children of the world, the children of Earth. And on top of that, once we come full circle and we get back to the plasma apocalypse, and those blue beams of life emit out of the earth itself and reach up to the heavens, they will fill our world with energy, which has a rejuvenating effect on your bones, your skin. Basically, it's the fountain of youth. Keep an eye out for another video we're going to do pretty soon about the fountain of youth. All right, so they show you that they're going deep into the magical woods. They arrive at camp. This is really interesting. It's probably not purposefully done, but check this tint out. Doesn't this kind of look like the Cheshire Cat? Like, I don't know if they did that on purpose or not. I just thought it was kind of cool. So anyways, they arrive at camp, right? This is us basically arriving at the apocalypse, okay? And then the camp counselors are the surviving elderly, or they're also seen as those elder gods or those elder beings or our space brothers, etc., that also come down in and they help out, or they're supposed to help out, right? During or after the apocalypse, according to the legends. So the kids all arrive in a bus. A bus, another word for bus, is box. Believe it or not, box is where we get the word bus, and it just means a container. That's why it's an omnibus. It's a box or a container filled with everybody, filled with all kinds of things. And that's where we get the word bus from. It literally is a box. When you see a box or a bus in the movies, it represents our world. We live in a box. We live in a submarine. We live in a container of some sorts. It's closed off basically from those other worlds that are around us. So the counselor comes into the bus to welcome all of the newbies. The newbies are all of us who are going to survive the apocalypse, and we're going to be welcomed to camp because you're going to be forced to camp. You're going to have to set up tents and structures and stuff to survive, basically. And that's kind of symbolically what these camping movies are hinting at. So the counselor, I'm going to talk about his t-shirt in a minute, says, "It's time to get out and get rid of all the unnecessary stuff." Now, by unnecessary stuff, he means electronics. Right? All the kids are going to turn in all of their electronics because this camp is for kids that are addicted to electronics. So their parents allegedly send them off to camp so that they can experience what life is like and what it's like to truly live without all of the amenities that electronics give us in the modern age. This is symbolic of where we are now, right? All of these kids that are turning in their phones and their smartphones and tablets and stuff, that's us, right? We have become dependent upon this technology. So the movies are dropping us hints. Hey, when the world flips around, when the world flips back right side up, right, and you go through the apocalypse, your technology will be useless. You won't have electricity. There will be a worldwide EMP that will shut off all electricity everywhere. And so we have to symbolically turn in our gadgets, turn in our phones, and we have to find out what it's like to live once more, right? This is us. We are these kids. The counselor even says, and they always try to make the counselors kind of look bad, but maybe it's just a perspective sometimes, right? So he says, "Why are you so sad? You're at camp." A lot of people will be sad at first because their entire world and all their comforts and amenities of modern society are gone. And people have not been taught in elementary schools or grade schools or high schools or colleges how to live, how to survive, how to use what the earth gives us to be happy, to find things to do, to keep busy, and to find our purpose in life. Right now, our purpose is to just continue checking our devices, caring what everybody else thinks of us with likes and dislikes and all that stuff. And it creates a false sense of reality for us. So we're going to go to camp. We are made to go to camp in this world every other cycle, or at the end of every cycle. So the leader of the camp counselors says, "Some of you are here for the second or even the third time." I believe symbolically this is referencing reincarnation, right? Some of us are here for the second or even the third time. Now, I also believe that reincarnation for some stops at the plasma apocalypse because many souls that have made it up to the Aurora Borealis, they're the first ones to get sucked out. So they actually are permitted to leave, but that's another theory that I'm working on. So many of you are here for the second, third time around, he says, you know it's worth it and it's fun. The apocalypse is worth it, in my opinion, and it is fun. It's different, right? We get to survive. We get to go to camp. We get to do whatever we want to do because there's no rules anymore. We get to live however we want. He says, I want this camp to be a kind of holiday for you. So when the apocalypse is peeking its head right around the corner, right now as we speak. Everybody knows it. Everybody can see it. They're all talking about it. There's more and more videos being made about the world ending and how it seems like the world might be ending. Every day, every single day, there's more and more of those. All right, so then they're starting to show us some of the characters, and he's talking to us, and he says, because you're addicted to your smartphones and your laptops, to electronics, to technology. This camp will demonstrate that apart from it being easy, it's awesome, it's pleasant, and it's fantastic. Fantastic meaning it's fantasy to us today, right? And it's crazy because we use things like our smartphones and our tablets and computers and old-fashioned things called books in order to escape into a fantastic reality. We enjoy going to that place because it's somewhere we have been before. It's something that we resonate with. He says, you're going to learn new skills. So after the apocalypse comes, bet you're going to learn new skills. You're going to have to survive, okay? If you don't survive, then you'll be reset and it'll be time to start over. You'll rediscover yourselves as well, right? You have new meaning, new life, new fresh breath to breathe, all because your entire environment has changed. Right? You're going to rediscover who you are and what it means to be you. What it means to be you will come from you, not from other people's opinions, not from likes or dislikes, not from any types of social media. You will define yourself and spend lots of time with yourself as well. And you'll get to know other people intimately. To our offline survival and trekking camp Adrenaline. So this camp is called Camp Adrenaline. Symbolically, this is the whole world. Okay, we're going to go to this camp. We are all going to Camp Adrenaline one of these days. And it's called that because you're going to be full of adrenaline, right? Not only are you going to have the natural adrenaline because there will be Fantazoids and otherworldly heavenly beasts that float down and come up into our world. There will be giants reemerging once more. There will be the vampiric race or the elven race or however people want to call them, the Anunnaki, etc. They will introduce themselves. The plants will grow to gigantic proportions. People will have superpowers of various types. This is going to be an adrenaline rush, but not just those things to get you excited. It will literally be your energy. Your soul right now is on minimum. Most of us, our soul, the world's soul is on minimum, right? The world fills the surface with soul or with earth spirit, earth energy, vril. It goes by many different terms. Every other cycle. Right now, we're not in the cycle because you would see these beams of these pillars and poles shooting up and touching the sky everywhere, right? There would be sacred caves that people would go to and visit. Special stations that are set up where the buildings actually harness the earth's energy and people go there for healing. And then they put huge organs in those places and they play music, which is a type of programming for the ambient energy that's around us anyway. But your energy will be on high. I promise. The Earth's energy will be at a high level of vibration. This will usher in the golden age, and you will feel like you're just full of energy, right? You don't need coffee. You don't need 5-hour energies. You don't need Red Bulls. You don't need to get 8 hours of sleep, which is a third of our life, which is something that should be a red flag. You know what I mean? That should be a huge red flag. Anyways, let's move on. Now, they all have to pick numbers. Remember, these are survivors. The numbers represent different groups. Each group has a different task, but there is one goal and one common objective. That is us. We are those people who survive. We become the new tribes of the world that will be, right? We become those tribes. We come together as a tribe, and then we spread out as tribes and become lost and forget one another. But we have one goal and one objective together. He says, you'll be off into the wild on your own, obviously, if you're surviving the apocalypse, away from civilization. I don't really like the word civilization because it's not really civilized these days, but we live in the upside down, so everything's kind of backwards. They say you will meet savage beasts. What this is a kid's camp. And they're here for like escaping computers and technology and stuff. What do you mean you're going to meet savage beasts, right? You're not supposed to meet savage beasts when you send your kids to camp and stuff, unless they're going to a zoo camp. This is definitely put in there because it's a reference to the Fantazoids that enter into our world, the great beasts and the monsters of old. He says maybe even some local madmen. That's not right. Like, if this is a regular camp and this is not an esoteric breadcrumb talking to us, right? This is not a good camp to send your kids to. If they're going to meet savage beasts and local madmen, you know what I mean? This is esoteric and it's a breadcrumb for us. The madmen are the plasma possessed of the world, right? The red plasma comes into our world and it is here to possess things. Some people get possessed by it and their spirit energy becomes amplified. Those people who have negativity and anger and hatred and stuff in your heart or in your soul or in your chakra, your spirit, whatever, that becomes amplified. Whatever you are when this event happens, you become the best of whatever you are. If you are a holy apostle, if you're like a Mother Teresa type, if you're very peaceful, that becomes super amplified. But if you're hateful and resentful and selfish, that also becomes amplified. People's spirit becomes solidified to a certain extent for a while. All right, so he says, a week of adventure, great fun, and many opportunities. It's Hell Week, okay? This is the week of the plasma apocalypse that happens, symbolically speaking. It's a week long, by the way. All of which is going to be offline. Yes. So I've seen some videos people are talking about like, oh, will the internet go out? Will the internet go down? Yes, absolutely. 100%. It's going to. The question is just when is it going to happen, right? I believe all of the internet will go out, not because somebody will drop some creative weapon over our country and we're going to blame the other people. That's 1984. They make up wars and rumors of wars and gossip about, who's doing these things when oftentimes it's Mother Nature doing it, right? So let's move forward. All right. So we go back to this creepy house. Remember the one where the postman died? And there's this creepy old lady that's dragging a dead wild boar over to this hole that's in the ground, this little attic, this little basement hole. And what she's doing, she's going to feed whatever monsters are down there. So she pulls it back, but she trips and she totally falls inside as well. So she goes down into the earth. The postman was pulled down into the earth or the basement. The mother figure was pulled down into the earth. And there's also a couple of other entities down there. We're going to talk about the symbolism of those characters in just a minute and why they're pulled down into the earth. Welcome to Camp Adrenaline. As you can see here, no cell phones. It's an adrenaline rush. There's also the hexagon or the hex, the magic that enters into the world. At that time, it's the hexagon for the number 6 or the spiraling of the plasma. Also, they sort of hid this in there too, right? You've got the pyramid and the all-seeing eye symbolism. If you're unfamiliar with what that means, the triangle or the unfinished pyramid is a volcano, right? It's a plasma volcano, and they have the eye. The eye is usually above it, but they actually combine those two elements into one over time. But the eyeball used to be above the unfinished pyramid. That's the depressurization point or the hole in the sky that is directly above Mount Meru or Ruhus Negra. Ruhus Negra, the Black Mountain, the Magnetic Mountain. All right, let's meet some of the characters. So we've got the jock, the guy with all the muscles. He's busy taking a shower. He's all smiling and he's proud of himself. They're clearly making a point that he's like, very much going through teenage puberty, we'll say. Then we've got the pretty girl. The pretty girl's doing your hair and she's looking into the mirror. She's very concerned. These two are very much into their looks and what they look like. Well, guess what? That's not an ability that's going to be very helpful in the post-apocalyptic world. It could be. I guess some people could use it to their advantage. But what it really means is that these are the types of people that tend to be unprepared, because these are the types of people, and I'm totally being stereotypical, but these stereotypically are the types of people that are not going to be researching the apocalypse and stuff. They are comfortable in the world, in the modern age that we live in today. So these are two of the main characters. Then we meet this kid. He's kind of a nerdy kid. He's going to the bathroom to be alone with his comic book. So he's he's sort of the outcast. He's one of the black sheep. However, we're going to see that he knows some stuff. Then we meet this girl. This is the girl that has some inward fractures of the heart. She's had some broken heart. She's got some issues. She lost her family. They died in a terrible car accident. And she's actually super important to the movie. She kind of has a Sarah Connor look. That was my first thought when I saw her. And they actually point that out. So she does have some cuts on her wrist, which implies to us that she's broken. She's somebody who is broken. She's been through a lot. She's learned many lessons, and she has a broken heart, which needs repaired, right? This is huge in the movies because typically these are the types of people that are either left alone by the monsters or they're spared from whatever the apocalyptic event is, because I believe that this energy, it looks for its own kind. This energy that comes down from the skies above is basically, we see it as a malevolent force because it possesses things and it's here to kill everything, basically. It's here to rework everything so that the world can start over. Now, it doesn't want to kill everything because it wants to leave some good seed to grow for future generations, basically. So this is where you get your age-old battle of good versus evil. Now we have this Catholic father, this Catholic priest guy or whatever, and he comes in and he's going to bless everybody with his Catholic blessing. And he says, Jesus, send down your angels so they may drive the sinister forces of civilization into the depths of hell. Okay, a couple things I want to mention about this. One, oftentimes these guys are bad guys in the movies, okay? Which he's going to turn out to be a bad guy. I'll spoil that for you right now. Two, listen to what he's saying. Jesus, send down your angels so they may drive the sinister forces of civilization into the depths of hell. Sinister forces like her and him and all of these people who are just materialistic, basically. Of course, that's me just being very symbolic and, interpreting it the way I like to interpret it, but that's fine. Anyways, it's the plasma that comes down into the world. It can basically, it sees in the electromagnetic spectrum, and your spirit and your soul and your chakra is in the electromagnetic spectrum. So they literally can read your aura. All right, so all the counselors come in, they collect all the technology. This would represent the gods or the angels that come down who are actually visiting from other worlds quite often, right? That we have space travelers that we are going to send, or not we, but some of us are preparing right now with rocket ships all over the place to use to blast off and to get out of this world, to escape and to go to other places and other worlds. Just like other realms of existence will send their representatives and their people, which is these camp counselors basically. And they're the ones that have all the technology, not us. We will be collecting technology from all of the garbage and junk that floats back down after the world tempest expires. But we won't know how to use it. That will be the steampunk age, and we'll just sift through and repurpose all the garbage we find. So here's us all standing in line, and they say, we're off for a 3-day hike. It's a heck of a trip. That the 3 days is the 3 days of darkness symbolically that we go through that kicks everything off. So here they are walking into the woods. Now this is really weird too. For me, I've been to camp. And typically they have like buildings and stuff, where kids go and stuff. This is a different one. This is a unique camp where they arrive at camp and then they just have one counselor take a group of kids to just go set up tents and camp, I guess. It's a little different, but this is in Poland, so they might do things a little different. Also, Poland is really interesting that they bring that up a lot in the movie, that they're Polish and that it takes place in Poland. I'm going to say this. I normally don't like movies that are dubbed into another language, but this one on Netflix did a really good job. I didn't even notice that they were speaking Polish. Anyways, Poland, the land of those from the pole, people who have migrated, those of us who used to live at the lands at the North Pole, once that beam went back down into the earth or the postman died or whatever, we spread out. We went to explore, right? We took our tribes with us and we diversified. And many of those people that settled named themselves after the land of the pole, or the pole land, or those people who are the Polish, or the people from the pole. So one of these kids, the nerdy kid, says your necklace looks just like the T-800. That's a Terminator reference, right? And that's also a reference to when the plasma comes into this world and all of our electronics that have been shut off all of a sudden come to life and have a life of their own because they're imbued with spirit now. All right, so she says, oh, and then he says, you look a little bit like Sarah Connor too, which I thought was cool because she totally does. All right, now the buff kid, the jock in the back, he's walking, doing his hike, but he's actually checking this chick out right in front of him for obvious reasons. She lifts up the bag just so he can get a better view. And then they're both kind of being flirty with each other as they're hiking, right? They're not getting the point, right? The point is to be out into the world and to be one with nature. But they continue to flirt with each other. This is also symbolic of what happens to us and our sex drives after the apocalypse. I believe that they actually go up pretty high. But I think a lot of chemical changes are going to happen with us as well. I think that we almost revert back into a childlike state and go through another phase of puberty, basically, where we grow extra sets of teeth and different things happen too. All right, and then they show you the moon. The moon is totally blue. Now, this is really interesting because one of the signs that you can look for to see how close the apocalypse is every other cycle, the sun will turn white and then blue. It starts off red, and then it goes to orange, then it goes to yellow, then it goes to white, then it goes to blue, as does the moon. So I've been noticing lately, the moon's been extremely bright, but then I've been outside looking around under the moonlight, which is casting sharp, crisp silhouette shadows everywhere, right? That the light from the moon is becoming more blue, or it seems to becoming more blue. It's sort of a whitish blue at the moment. Now, the nerdy kid, he's like, I stream, I run a YouTube channel, so automatically I give this kid a high five. I like him. And then all of a sudden they're doing a campfire episode and they're like, something's out there, and they hear a monster or something. They go to investigate, and she sees a fox. Okay, that's an interesting to put in the movie, right? It could have been anything. Could have been a raccoon. It could have been a bear. It could have been, nothing at all. And she goes, it was just a little fox. But this is going to teach us an important lesson. Let's check this out. What does the fox symbolize? There's a fox spirit animal, and it says when the fox appears in your life as a spirit animal, it encourages action and quick, swift moves. You may be called to take action in a way that shows your adaptability and the ability to move quickly through obstacles and resistance. So what this is an opportunity for us to learn how to read signs and omens, right? If you're a big dreamer and you have lots of different symbolic elements in your dreams, watching movies and figuring out the symbolic elements in the movies will actually help you to interpret your dreams as well. But in the movies, they're showing you this is foreshadowing what's to come. This is a warning to the campers that you're going to need to act quick. You're going to need to think on your toes and survive. All right, so the jock kid, he lights up. He's smoking the Mary Jane, and he's going to die. Anybody that does drugs, basically in any of these movies, is going to die. And they're going to go over some horror movie elements that talk about like the horror movie rules and stuff like that. Pay close attention, right? I'm not saying that these types of things are bad. I'm not being judgmental in and of it myself. What I am saying is that what we do to our bodies changes our DNA, right? We are teaching ourselves how we would like our future selves to grow and to be, right? It's ingrained in us so that we can be the best that we can possibly be. So be careful, because that plasma that comes down is going to rework DNA. It's going to look to perfect DNA and change it. All right, so the pretty girl joins in. She sits down with them. They start making out. Things get hot and heavy. And next thing you know, they're totally naked together. They're definitely going to die. Okay, also in the scary movies, anybody that gets naked together basically dies too. All right, so they lay together under the pale blue moonlight, and it's hard to see here, but basically she takes off, and there's this hillbilly looking monster guy. I've got way better pictures coming up. This mutant hillbilly monster guy grabs this dude who's inside the sleeping bag and smashes him up against a tree, just like Jason Voorhees would, right? So he's missing the next morning. They are all walking around looking for him, and then they come up to this tree and they go, oh my God, this looks like there's blood on this tree. This is an interesting conversation. They're all like, yeah, blood. And then the camp counselor comes up and she takes a look at it, and she's looking at it. She goes, no, it's probably just sap, right? And then they go, sap of that color? She goes, yeah, sure. Lots of trees secrete juices. This is a whole conversation about the tree of life, about the fountain of youth. What happens is that this tree shoots up from the center of our world. Everybody can see it. It's the tallest sky beam in the world, at the center of the world. It shoots up as a beam, but then it branches out, creating eddies and currents and stuff in the sky. And it bleeds, it sweats, it interacts with our atmosphere, and little droplets fall down off of it, which is known as manna or ambrosia or the holy nectar of the gods, the sacred honey from the sacred bees, etc. So they're having a conversation right now about, is it blood or is it sap or juice from a tree, right? This is totally has Jesus written all over it, right? Who was died or hung upon a tree. Odin died and hung upon the tree. Their blood is coming out. Even in the story of Jesus says that he was punctured in the side and water came out of him. So it's symbolic of the tree of life. And then they continue with the conversation, and they say their color's similar to, and then he goes, they don't grow in Poland. Then she says that, well, they sometimes do. And he goes, like where? And she goes, well, like right here. They sometimes grow in the land of the Poles, right? Not Polacks, not Polish people or anything, but the original land of the Poles, or the Pole land, right? And sometimes they grow there, which is every other apocalyptic cycle. All right, so she says, all right, I'm going to look around. Me and Zoja, we're going to go look around. And the nerdy kid's like, you want us to split up? Can I say something? And she goes, yeah, hurry up. And he goes, in horror movies, when groups split up, people die. Now this girl reacts and she's like, oh, great. Oh my God. This kid's talking about horror movies. Everyone's rolling their eyes. This is real life. This isn't a movie. Is it really? Is it not really a movie? Okay. Is it not the drama of our lives being played out, and everything that we do is reflecting to one another, everything about who we are, where we come from, where we've been, and where we're going? Yes, we live in the never-ending story. But this is the typical reaction that people get when they encounter people who are looking into the deeper truths of the world that we live in and in our reality. So they're taking a hike. The kid in the back is talking, and he goes, in horror movies, there's 6 deadly sins. There's curiosity. Oh, I wonder what's inside. Let's take a peep. This is also symbolic of Pandora's box, right? When curiosity, kills the cat, Pandora's box is our world. The box is the container that we live in. When the box is opened, that's when monsters come out and the Fantazoids float down into our world and come up from the inner earth, etc. So curiosity, also in the post-apocalyptic world, this is good advice for all of us, right? We should be curious, but we should be careful and cautious at the same time, right? Disbelief is the next one. Oh, I don't believe it. I don't believe in it. It's just my imagination. No need to fear. This is most of the world right now. They don't believe. They have to go to the movies to pretend to believe, right? People don't pick up books anymore. All they believe in is what is presented to them on their television screens, tablets, and smartphones. Confidence. I'm going inside. Why shouldn't I? Right? Overconfidence is not a good idea either. You should be careful and brave. Bravery needed when it's time to be brave, right? But not just to be brave, just to show off for other people or something, just to show that you could do it. It takes an element of wisdom to be a survivor. Number 4, unattractive people never survive. Now, I'm going to say that I disagree with that to a certain extent, right? There is some indication that the plasma is coming in and it's looking to rework DNA and to perfect DNA. And then this gets into the blood and the purity of the blood and those certain family lineages that are trying to keep their bloodline pure or their DNA pure, etc. However, unattractive people never survive is also today's world. That's the world that we live in today. Right? They show you all the time what's attractive by watching YouTube videos, by all of the likes and dislikes on Facebook and stuff like that. We are conditioning ourselves to be more and more fake as time goes on, right? That only the outside is attractive or ugly, when really it's what's on the inside. Sex is a death sentence, which we've already covered and went over. And another interesting thing too is his t-shirt says zombie exterminator. which is cool because he's going to become a zombie exterminator. And 6, splitting up just like we're doing now, right? So he's giving us some tips on how to survive the post-apocalyptic world. Do not split up, all right? And especially until you get more and more in your group. But if you have a small group of people, it's a good idea to stay together. All right, so while they're off hiking and stuff, we've got this guy, the cool guy, sitting down with this girl, and he's like, hypothetically, if we were to be left alone here, what would you do? And then she's just, she's happy that somebody's flirting with her, and that's their thing that they're doing. So she was with the other guy who just died. Okay. She's acting as the distraction, essentially, right? Usually there's a female figure. Typically she has red hair, or she's wearing a red dress. Usually it's the woman in red who serves as a distraction. What is the distraction? The distraction is our survival. The distraction is many things in the modern world that take us away from the truth of our history and figuring out who we really are. All right. So they're still on their trek looking for the kid who is destroyed in the sleeping bag. And they get to this dark green house, which is very interesting. Earlier, the house was very colorful. I thought about this for a while, and I decided to just kind of leave it up to all of you. But for me, symbolically, this dark green color indicates either the anode or the cathode that are at that area at the North Pole. I believe it depends upon what the mountains or what those plasma volcanoes are made out of. I believe that they're probably metallic in nature. Probably, if I were to guess, if they're acting as an anode and a cathode, they are either iron or copper, or both, iron and copper. And if that's true, then it stands to reason that, for example, the copper mountain would turn green or dark green, as you see here. And then that might also give rise to the emeralds, symbolism, and stuff like that too. All right, so nobody answers the door. So what do? They're just a little too courageous, just like the kid just said, and they just open it. They're totally going to trespass. They just walk in. Is anybody home? We're looking for someone who's missing. They just invite themselves in. Not a good idea, right? You're not supposed to just walk into other people's houses. Then they show you this picture of these twins. The twin symbolism is huge whenever you start studying the esoteric past. If you start looking into the ancient genealogies and family lineage of the ancient gods of Greece or Egypt or Mesopotamia or any of them, you're going to come across all these different twins that are in these family lines. All right, so they're walking around. They see that there's this false floor, and there's like an opening there. So they open it up and they go down where the monster lives, just because they're looking for the kid that died, basically. And he is down there, but still, it's not a good idea for them to go look for him. So, all right, so the kid's down there. He's totally ripped apart. He's tied to the table by chains and stuff. There's some symbolic elements I'll come back to as well. So they're down there. This part reminds me of the Goonies when all the kids are down underneath that restaurant, right? And they're hiding from the Fratellis. That's exactly what they're going through right now, basically. And symbolically, they're down hiding under the earth in a basement or a safer area during the apocalypse. People not only hide down under the earth because of all the stuff that's going on with nature on the surface, but they also hide because of the Fantazoids, those beasts and the wild men, or the wild people who are plasma possessed, walking around like killers. As you can see, we've got the mutated hillbilly who reaches down and he comes in. There he is right there. You see him? So he walks down the stairs. They're totally trapped down in the basement. He turns around. I'm going to show you more about the hillbilly here in just a minute, this mutant dude. Now, he's got all these boils all over his body. Let's take a closer look at this guy so we can figure out what he represents, right? So he's a huge, big dude that's wearing these overalls, kind of hillbilly-ish and stuff, but he's got his signature is that he's got all these boils all over his body. He has a brother, right? We're going to learn about his brother here in just a bit. But he's got all these boils everywhere. I believe symbolically, one, this guy is plasma possessed. He's one of those killers that gets plasma possessed by the red plasma. They stay out on the surface, they get plasma possessed, and they go around doing the will of the plasma itself, which is to kill, to take things away from this earth and to destroy things. So this guy clearly was on the surface because he's got all these boils everywhere. What are the boils from? Well, during the plasma apocalypse, whenever the sky opens up, there is a mixture of various gases and ions and stuff that slam into one another, and they mix together. And what that does when that happens is it creates a brand new environment, a brand new atmosphere. There's various pockets of different types of gases and stuff that float around. Some of them are, for example, nitrous oxide clouds and gases, right? Which will tend to make people very happy and not notice any pain and stuff. You'll see that in the horror movies too. But some of those pockets of gas are things like chlorine and stuff that are created. And that has to do with the anode and the cathode being switched on and what it does to the electrolyte, which is the salt water, which is NaCl basically. Anyways, it has the potential to create chlorine gas, which will burn your skin and create boils basically. Sorry for getting off course there. All right, so we go back to this guy. The guy and the girl are just sitting there. Now, you last thought that he was flirting with her, but now they're sitting there and he's like, man, you know what? I just want to talk to you. Even when I brought my boyfriend home, oh, so he is homosexual. We learned that he's one of the token gay characters in the movies now. So let's talk about that, right? One, he is going to die. You'll see what happens, but that doesn't mean that he is evil. Okay. Oftentimes people tend to interpret this as like, oh, the gay character is going to be killed in the movie because they're bad or because they're evil or whatever. The reason that they have a prominent homosexual is some people would argue, well, that's our world today, so we have to include that so that we don't leave anybody out of the movies, etc. I don't think so. I have a unique take on this. I have a unique theory, which is our plasma or our spirit, our internal electromagnetic force that we call spirit and soul and energy and stuff, that goes into flux right along with the world's spirit, the world's electromagnetic energy. Whenever it gets closer and closer to the apocalypse, it starts going into flux beforehand. It doesn't just ball up and wait until one moment where it fluctuates. It starts fluctuating a little bit at a time. So we start to recognize signs and omens by seeing the flux that happens in our modern world, in our everyday average life. So one of those things is sexuality just goes into flux, basically, long story short. So that's why we see this. This is a sign of the apocalypse. Not that the apocalypse is coming because so many things are in flux. So many things are in flux because the apocalypse is coming. It's not the other way around. All right, so he says, if I ever grabbed my friend's butt in front of my dad, and then, he's talking to her about how he's gay and the struggles that he goes through. Then he looks over at the pretty girl and whoop-ow! She is dead, right? She's got, basically she is being representative of the harlot in the movie, right? The promiscuous girl. And she has been given her just rewards according to the monster in the movie, who takes a pole and shoves it through her head and through her mouth at the same time. There also might be some other symbolic elements there, but I'll leave that up to you. All right, so she's dead. The monster in the background, you can kind of see them way back there. He picks her up with that same pole and just tosses her down. Now we see the other monster, the other mutant hillbilly. This is a different one. He kind of has those same boils and stuff like that, but he also kind of has a melty face, right? I did a recent video, and I'm doing a series right now about superpowers that people inherit during the apocalypse. One of those powers, or one of those things that happen to you, right, which grants you certain abilities, is that some people get so much radiation, depending on how much they're exposed to it, how much they're outside, and how close they are to these higher levels of radiation. Some people have the ability to stretch their skin way out. It promotes elastin in the skin, and like I said, the body just rejuvenates. The skin rejuvenates. Everything's rejuvenating. So some people have stretchier skin, and youthful skin, elastic skin, right? It changes you. It actually makes you more youthful looking. However, if you get an influx of it or too much of it, it's very possible that your skin could actually have the opposite effect, and it could start to melt, especially if it doesn't have the collagen to balance out the elastin. All right, then we go back to these two, and he says, he's talking about how they're totally scared that they don't know if they're going to be able to survive with these mutant killers on the run. He says, I can't imagine us fishing, eating moss, hunting, or mushroom picking. Those are crucial, and those are little tips that the movie's giving to us. Hey, when the apocalypse comes, these are the types of things that you can do to survive. Fish, eat moss, hunt, mushroom pick. It's also saying, hey, wake up. Those of us in the modern world who are sitting back in the comfy luxuries of electronics, wake up. Start teaching. You have all of the world's information at your fingertips. Occasionally, wouldn't it be good for us to maybe research something on the internet instead of flipping through 30-second attention-grabbing videos? Wouldn't it be more beneficial to us and our children and their children to, I don't know, take 5 minutes to learn how to start a fire, or to take 5 minutes to learn how to purify water, or to learn which mushrooms are poisonous or which ones are clean, right? We have the technology now. Let's stop using it for just pure entertainment purposes and amusement. All right, so the kid who is having the personal problems, he takes off after the harlot is impaled, we'll say, and he goes straight to a church. Not the best place for him to be going, right? So he goes straight to this Catholic church and starts banging on the door. That same exact Catholic priest answers the door. So he's going inside. He's telling him he's upset. He's trying to confess to him, what's going on about the killer and stuff. And then the Catholic priest knocks him out, basically. He wakes up tied up inside of this church. And the Catholic priest basically is like, I know that you're gay, and we don't take kindly to that kind of thing around here, basically. But then he hears a noise outside. So the Catholic priest goes outside, and it is a wood chipper all running all by itself. It's just turned on all by itself. Now in the movie, it turned on allegedly because the monster turned it on, and the monster's got this ultimate plan to toss the dude into the wood chipper, I guess. However, symbolically, you will see things like this turn on all by themselves in the post-apocalyptic and the apocalyptic world. It's because the energy is turning everything on and allowing it to have a life of its own and allowing it to run. So things like this will just turn on by themselves. Machines will turn on all by themselves. It will just be exactly like the Terminator and Skynet, basically. So he goes to check it out. He sees it. He looks back. Nothing there. Okay, good. Because he did hear a sound. But then he turns around and, it's Melty Face. It's the Melty Face mutant hillbilly. And they have a staring contest. The hillbilly grabs him, pokes out his eyes. This is also symbolic in many horror movies. Not is it just, scary to have somebody poke your eyes out. I imagine that would be pretty painful, right? But it happens so often in the movies, there's got to be a breadcrumb of truth behind it, right? And that is that many people lose their sight when they go outside and they leave the safety of their houses or their caves or wherever they are hiding during the apocalypse. When they go out, that plasma comes down and your eyes are the windows to your soul. And I believe that it might actually dock or connect with the face. One, because it's going to try to upload memories. That's a whole different video, but it uploads memories. It's sort of a data harvest, basically. But also it can make people go blind, right? This is intense light and people are very attracted to it. When they come outside, they want to stare at the beautiful lights. But oftentimes many of those people, they go blind. All right. So the monster picks him up, tosses him into the wood chipper, casually. And then we go back inside, and the other kid, he was able to get away. He decides the best idea in this little church is to hide in the confessional, right? Not a good idea. So he hides in the confessional. The monster walks in. Now it starts to sniff. It starts to sniff around, right? This is how it sees him, right? Something's going on with the senses. Your senses are going to be heightened, but in the post-apocalyptic world, people will be able to smell you. So keep this in mind, okay? You're not going to have deodorant. You're not going to want to wear perfume. You're not going to want to wear cologne and stuff like that, because you don't want people to smell you. You don't want animals to smell you. You definitely don't want to smell good during the apocalypse, right? You want to cover up your bodily smells, with mud or stuff like that. If you're trying to survive and you know that there are predators around, you definitely don't want to smell like that. I also thought that this guy looked strikingly similar to the Thing in the Fantastic Four, right? Can you see that there's sort of a, that's almost like you turn the lights on and that's what he looks like, right? So, like I said, during the plasma apocalypse, the plasma itself is spirit energy, and being such, it has the ability to rewrite and rework and reorganize DNA, especially if it gets close enough. Now, this character right here called the Thing in the Fantastic Four, I want to read to you how he got his superpowers. The Thing received his powers when cosmic rays, right? That's a very generalized statement, right? There are specific rays out there, but because people don't look into them enough or study them enough, they just they make them mysterious. They just call them cosmic rays. Cosmic means just beyond our sky. The cosmos is just beyond our sky. The rays are right around our sky. It's plasma that is swirling around what's known in academics as the plasmasphere. Cosmic rays bombarded his body. He is extremely strong and durable. I've also talked about this in our post-apocalypse plasma powers, series that we're doing. Nick Fury's intel classified him as power level 8, rock-like skin. The Thing possesses a smooth orange rock-like hide as a result of exposure to cosmic rays. Interesting. So let's learn about these monsters and see how they got their powers. So these kids, they run off, they find this old man that lives in a shack all by himself. And he goes, "You don't know who you're dealing with. There's 2 of them." And they're like, "What? There's 2 of them?" He says, "Yeah, a long time ago, a mom and 2 of her boys, they were twins, actually. So these monsters are actually these 2 kids right here." Right? There's the twin symbolism, as I was referencing earlier, right? When we look into our esoteric past, we see that a lot of these ancient gods and stuff, or fallen angels or whatever, that they were twins, identical twins. And then they make a huge point of them being twins. They didn't have to make them twins in the movie. What is the symbolism for that? Why would you make it in the movie so that they were twins? It's not strikingly scary to anybody like myself. I don't have a fear of twins. I don't think that that's a very common thing for people to have. It's because it represents a real element. There are real twins that happen in our world that these 2 kids are sort of representing. All right, so the kids are out playing a long time ago. They look up in the sky, and what happens? Boom, there's an explosion in the sky, and all this stuff starts coming down from the sky. So they're looking up. Both of them are winking. Both of them are squinting one eye to give us a little hint. That's the all-seeing eye. That's the one eye. That's the wink to let people know that something's about to change. You know what I mean? You let them know, like, hey, don't worry, something's about to change. That's the wink to those who know and to those who understand the symbolism. So they're both winking, which is symbolic of this is the plasma apocalypse. The sky explodes, stuff comes down from the sky, especially those cosmic rays that we just learned about. The kids walk up to it and they see that there is this rock that fell from the heavens. So they decide to pick it up and they take it with them to bed. They hide it underneath their bed. So later, here's the mother of the 2 twins, and she's reading them a bedtime story. Check out this bedtime story. "There lived a witch, ugly as a bat." And they're like, I'm with you. I'm getting tired. Okay, ugly witch. "She ate little girls in the morning. On little boys, she ate them for dinner." They're like, okay, a witch eats little boys like us. Okay, gotcha. I'm super tired now. "To stuff plump little children into her great big sack. She would sing this to the children. Nobody sleeps in the woods tonight. Nobody sleeps in the woods tonight. Good night, children." Right? Isn't that insane? Like, this is basically these, and this is, it seems weird to us to hear a mother read her child like this totally horror story before bedtime, right? But if you think about it, that's a lot of our nursery rhymes and stuff, children's rhymes and stuff that we don't do that much, that we don't have children memorize and practice singing and stuff much anymore. They were typically pretty morbid and weird and strange because they were things that our forefathers wanted us to remember that were about important events, right? So she is teaching them about an important event. It's kind of weird that she does it right before bedtime because they're, obviously probably not going to be able to sleep. But anyway, she turns off the light. She's like, "Good night." And then they show you this rock that's underneath their bed. The rock actually has these black goo inside of it. I'll show you in a minute. They go back to the blue moon. They show you the blue moon again, right? During the apocalypse, there's going to be a conjunction. Okay, when the apocalypse happens, every other cycle, there's a conjunction basically, right? One cycle is whenever the sun goes really far away, all the way out to the winter solstice, and it disappears. The other cycle, the sun goes all the way in towards and right above the middle of the world, or the North Pole. It spirals its way along, baking everything underneath it because it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and that's why it turns blue. That's why the moon will also turn blue. When the blue sun and the blue moon reach their final destination, to quote another movie, then there will be a great conjunction in the middle of the sky at the North Pole, where the sun, the moon, and the object behind or responsible for the sun and the moon, also known as Rahu, they all come together. And it's right above the plasma volcano. All right, so we go back to rock. The rock starts spewing out all this black goo and stuff, and it goes up, and basically plasma possesses these kids. Now the kids start getting these boils and stuff like that, and they are totally plasma possessed. They become killers instantaneously. So they decide to go live in the basement. I'm going to show you what's happening to the kids in a minute, but this next part, watch this next part because it's a real quick scene, but I want to show you the symbolism in this picture right here. The mother wakes up, and Catholicism's a pretty huge thing in this movie as they reference it so much. But if you can see here, she has a picture of Mother Mary, Jesus's mother. Here's another one, Mother Mary with the burning heart or the sacred heart. Here's another one. This one's harder to see because it's a black Mother Mary and a black Jesus. She sits up and she has these in her room. What this represents, and I'm going to show you why I think this is so, is the three beams that shoot up at the center of the world. The anode and the cathode, the anode on one side, the cathode on the other side, and then the central beam that comes up from the hollow portions of the earth. Let's take a quick look at it. Here you can see the pictures are arrayed in such a way. The center one is always taller or higher up than the other two because it literally reaches higher up into the sky because it's a bigger opening. Now, I drew some arrows. I want you to check these arrows out. One, we're going to talk about the Black Madonna. We're going to talk about the Black Madonna, the Black Jesus, and why they are portrayed as such and why that's so popular in the world. Then I'm going to talk about the burning heart symbolism as well. Now, let's take a look. Remember at the very beginning, I said that the postman was riding the bicycle, so he was in between the two wheels, right? This is the postman. This is the plasma formation that you see, and these are the two eddies or the two little torrents that swirl off to the sides because it creates a torus effect. Now, I've drawn in some plasma volcanoes of my own with little islands or whatever, and you can imagine that they shoot up. This is kind of what it looks like. Creates an electrical arc from the anode to the cathode, and then the central beam shoots straight up. The plasma swirls around underneath, and then it branches back out to the top, giving us this Odin character that dies upon the tree, Jesus on the cross, Atlas holding up the sky, etc. And then if you look at this portion right here, right? If we zoom into only this portion right here, this is what you see on the wall behind her, right? This is what we see. If we go back to it, right here, we've got the three Marys. The three Marys are representative of these three places, these three islands, basically. I'll tell you why. All right. So if we look up the origin of Mary, my research indicates that it's directly related to the Proto-Indo-European root word mori. Mori. Mori means a body of water, and it is the root word for things like aquamarine, marina, marinate, merlin, mermaid, merman, etc., and so on and so forth. So it has to do with a body of water, right? Usually like a lake or something like that, or a sea. Or you could say the ocean whenever we have the ocean. Now, let's look at a concept called the three Marys. There are three Marys that are prominent in the Bible. This is very important because, hypothetically speaking, if these three plasma volcanoes or inner earth entrances that every other cycle shoot up lights that illuminate the sky and touch the sky, right? If these are representative of the three Marys in the Bible, then they would be representative of the three Marys who were there at Jesus's birth and his death, his crucifixion or resurrection, right? So let's take a look at the concept known as the three Marys. It says here, the three Marys, also spelled Marys, are women mentioned in the canonized Gospels narratives of the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus, several of whom were or have been considered by Christian tradition to be named Mary, right? There's Mary Magdalene, there's Mary, Jesus' mom, and then there's Mary, allegedly Jesus' sister as well. So these are the three Marys. 1, 2, 3. The Wallflowers in the 90s was a popular band. They did a song called The Three Marlenas. Same exact thing. Marlena and Mary are the same exact thing. It's all symbolic. So if we take a look at another related word to Mori, we have mere, or M-E-R-E, which means a pool, a small lake, a pond, and it comes from M-E-R-E, which means a sea, an ocean, a lake, a pool, a pond, a cistern, etc. It comes from Old High German Mary, M-A-R-I, the German Meer, which means sea, the Gothic mare, which means sea, and it also comes from the Proto-Indo-European root mori, which we've already discussed. Now, right down here, there's another form of mere. I'll show you that one. Let's take a look at this one. Now, as these words are used, they split off into different meanings and stuff. Well, here's another one. This one is exact same spelling, mere, but it says in Middle English, there was a saying called meres of the earth, or meres of the earth, and it meant the ends of the earth. So here, meres actually means a boundary line. Do you see that? Meres, just like how the postman had the 88 and it represents the two pillars of Hercules, or the boundaries of the world. It says that also the word mere, or Mary, also means the boundary markers, right? So a long time ago, they would say the meres of the earth, or the ends of the earth. The ends of the earth are right here. This is the end of the earth. This is the westernmost extremity of the earth. Western being on the inside of the earth, when you go downwards, where east used to be up, west used to be down. Wow, I just got a huge donation from Tiffany in the chat. $80 and an awesome super chat sticker. So thank you. Wow, you just made my day. So thank you. I super appreciate it. All right. I'm glad that you guys find so much value in this. Man, I'm honored. All right, let's continue on. So we talked about the three Marys. Let's focus in on that one, Mary with the burning heart, or the sacred heart, right? This is at the middle of Mary, who represents the waters around these plasma volcanoes, right? The heart of Mary is Jesus. The heart of Mary is the source of life, which is the inside of the plasma volcano, or the inside of the earth, or inner earth energy, right? So that's why they show you Mary and her burning heart. Now let's talk about Black Mary, or the Black Madonna. This is all over the world, okay? There are various instances of Mary and Jesus as being black. I'm not talking about race at all, because these are not people. These are not human beings, okay? These are cosmic phenomenon that people personify as such. So they will sometimes show Mary as being black, sometimes show Jesus, therefore, also as being black, right? And it is solid black. It's not even like African American, like melanin, brownish black. It is solid black. There is a reason for this, because these Marys represent the Ruhus Negra, or the black rock, which is the plasma volcano. Let's see what the word Madonna means and check that out. So Madonna comes from various languages, especially Italian. It's related to the word madame. It comes in Italian. It means it's mia donna, which means my lady, right? So mia donna means my lady. So Madonna means my lady, basically. Now, donna actually comes from the Latin. It's donna comes from domina, which means a lady or the mistress of the house. But in Latin, it comes from domen, or domus, which means house, which is where we get the word domicile, right? Or domestic. It means house. And the Proto-Indo-European root word is dem. So household, or if it's demi, it would be my house, or my household, right? So Madonna means my house also. Not just my lady, but my house. She is a house for the virgin birth. She is a house for the light of the world to give birth to, either during Christmas time or possibly the summer solstice as well. Now check this out. This is pictures. These are pictures that people used to take about 100 years ago, maybe 200 years ago, Victorian, maybe post-Victorian age, people, the mothers would actually get dressed up, usually in all black, and then they would pose the baby or the child on their lap. And the reason for this in the modern age is that, they just wanted to have the baby in the picture and just a picture of the baby, but it's hard to take a picture because, back then, you had to sit very, very still while the camera was taking a picture. It wasn't just an instant picture. It took 30 seconds to take a picture. It's an exposure time. So traditionally, the mothers would wear black, or they would try to hide in the background. But what this also is, if I could do a truth in history, this would be it, right? This would be a whole segment on its own. These are the hidden mothers. These are known as the hidden mothers in these portraits, and they wore black because this is symbolically showing you the plasma volcano, right? It's the black mountain with the child inside of it. That's what they're showing you, right? This is our collective subconscious hard at work long before we ever had television or anything. I colored the baby blue just so that you could get a feel for the symbolic element there. But this is the inner earth energy, symbolically speaking. This is Jesus, symbolically speaking. This is the infant child that is waiting to be born. This is the Black Mountain or the Black Volcano, Ruhus Negra, the very high and lofty cliff, also known as Mount Meru, right? I drew a blue arrow pointing up because every other cycle, this blue energy inside the world goes up and it shoots out and the child is born. Every other cycle afterwards, it goes down and it retracts, and it is seen as sacrificing itself or dying or getting lost in the underworld. All right, so then their mom, there's these two kids, right? They go down into the basement. Remember, they just got plasma possessed by that asteroid or whatever. They're locked down in the basement, twins down in the basement, in the underworld, symbolically speaking, right? Just like the postman was pulled down into the underworld or the basement, the mother also needs to go down into the basement because the mother is one of those beams, right? The central beam is Ruhus Negra is Mary, essentially, right? So the two twins are locked down there. We already saw her fall down into them, but she traps them down in there. That's representative of the beams being pulled down into the earth. When those beams are released is whenever we will see things that are more like horror and fiction and sci-fi. When those beams make their appearance in our world, it's an indication that you're going to see monsters. You're going to see madmen. You're going to see crazy things. You're going to see people with superpowers. You're going to have a longer lifespan. All kinds of changes are coming to the world. Now, the stranger in the shack says that she put them in chains and locked them in the cellar, which reminds me of this biblical verse that talks about the angels that were put down into the inner earth recesses called Tartarus. It says, God did not spare the angels having sinned, but cast them down into Tartarus in chains of gloomy darkness. Now, it's really interesting too, that word Tartarus is the word tar 2 times, right? Tar comes from the ancient Proto-Indo-European word deru, which means tree, which is where we get the word druid from, or the tree people, right? So it's 2 trees. Tartar is 2 trees down inside of the earth, just like these 2 twin boys down inside of the earth. All right, so we go back to these Sarah Connor kid and the nerdy kid, and they say, we really have to go fetch some help, right? So everything's falling apart, and they're like, we need to get some help. He says, stay here if you want to survive. These are 2 options that we have. Go get some help, which is really if you leave this world, right? Going and getting help is like blasting off with NASA and Elon Musk. During the plasma apocalypse, you're not going to come back. And if you do, it'll be a while, okay? So you're not going to go get help and return with help. It's going to look like it, though, because others will take your place. They are called the Jacobites. They are called the Yahakovim, if I could call them that. I don't know if that's right grammar, but they are the replacements. They are the ones who will replace Elon and NASA and all those people that blast off and leave us behind during the apocalypse. There will be others who arrive from their apocalyptic worlds, too. And it will be almost like, we see Elon blasting off and these aliens have returned to help us out after the post-apocalypse when many people have lost their memories, they're panicking, etc. And they have no technology or anything. All right, this one's a bit too dark. I can't really see. Oh, that's just the mutant dude about to hack up this kid. Those mutants are also cannibals, okay? Be careful and watch out for cannibalism in the post-apocalyptic world, dead serious. Because those people who don't know how to survive, they'll go off of their basic instinct and they'll know that they can eat meat right? And all of a sudden they'll realize you're meat. You're made of meat. So be careful for those remnant that will still be out there. He says, all right, so now these two have the genius idea to go back down into the basement to try to get the dead kid's phone so that they can call for help. Not a super good idea. So the nerdy kid is like, all right, I'll distract him. You go grab the phone. And then she grabs him by the face and gives him a knife, which is cool because he's the zombie killer. He's got the shirt that says so. Now he's living up to that. Also, this is kind of keep this in mind for those of you who play video games and you're kind of nerdy or you're into D&D and stuff, right? These things might serve you well under different circumstances, right? And then she gives him a kiss on the cheek. Look at the smile on this kid, okay? Before, he was just like very, very worried, very like, oh my God, I'm gonna go distract the mutant hillbilly while you get the phone. Okay, totally scared. And then boom. He gets a kiss and he is energized, right? This is what happens, okay? Whenever there's little things that we can do to boost our energy and to make ourselves come back alive. Affection is one of those things, right? We're just filled with purpose whenever other people show their affection for us. It's nice, right? Everything in moderation, but it's very nice. So, in our world, we don't do that much anymore. We don't show affection. It's like off limits to touch, to hold hands, to hug people. We don't want to be too inappropriate or whatnot. Everything's very politically correct. I feel like giving the world a great big hug. I feel like people need to touch more, that they need to be more affectionate with one another, not sexual, not like that. See, the scales have tipped. Okay. Sexuality is good and it is normal when it's done in moderation and when it's better understood as to what the process is and how we can use it to better ourselves. And how to properly do those types of things. But our world has far tipped the scales on that. So all of that type of activity is seen as sinful and bad these days. All right, so the kid goes up to the front door holding the knife and just banging on the door, but he does not get the monster's attention. The bubble-faced, boil-faced guy grabs the girl by the throat, but the kid runs downstairs to try to distract him, shoves a knife into his back, but he's totally unfazed by it, right? He doesn't seem to feel any pain. That's also an element of the apocalypse, is not being able to feel pain too, especially if you get those nitrous oxide gas clouds. So he turns around, grabs the nerdy kid, gives him the kiss of death, basically, grabs his tongue with his teeth and rips out his tongue so that he can speak no evil. Because this whole movie, he's been telling everyone else how to survive, basically. So then the bad guy rips his tongue out. Then we have the Sarah Connor girl, right? She wakes up and she's sort of in a dream state, but she's looking right at the camera, which means she's looking at you, which means she's telling the audience, anytime that they look directly into the camera, they are trying to get your ultimate attention. Because they're telling you the next thing you see is very important. We want you to see what we see. So what does she see? She looks up and she sees that there's this horrible car accident from her past where her parents were caught on fire and they died. The dad crawls out doing his best Anakin Skywalker impression. And she's not too happy about it. She relives all of that. And it's terrible. Why do they show us this? Oh, somebody just subscribed. Hey, welcome to my channel. Why do they show us this? Because this is showing the broken, okay? I believe that, and this isn't based off of a whole lot except for my own personal feelings that I get and sort of a sixth sense. I believe that the broken are left alone in this world. Those of us who have broken hearts and we have been tried and tested and put through the fires, I feel like it's fair for life to back off, basically, and allow us to live in the Garden of Eden and allow us to return to paradise once more without having the extra pressure of these other things. Also, I would say that this is why when we talked about the Fantazoids, right, and how the Fantazoids might be able to actually read chakras and stuff as well, it's possible that they can. And so they actually used to get someone who was pure and had a pure heart, usually a virgin, and they would send them out into the woods. This is not that too long ago, to lure unicorns so that the evil people could actually kill the unicorn. So the evil people tricked the pure-hearted virgin. They would have them sit alone in the woods where they would attract a unicorn or a Fantazoid, basically, and then they would kill it, right? They would trick it into thinking that everything was good, but it really wasn't good. All right, anyways, moving on. So we've got Bubbleface and Melty Face brothers. They're upstairs. fixing their wounds and stuff like that. The girl is kept alive downstairs. So the monster doesn't kill her, right? She's the broken. That's what I've been trying to say. He could have killed her, but he doesn't. He smells her, and then he senses that he doesn't have any need to kill her. Pay attention in these monster movies, especially if it's like a campground or there's counselors and stuff like that. Pay attention to who they just decide to just leave alone when they totally could have killed that person. Usually it is somebody who is either a virgin or broken or a combination of both. So she's down there being left alone. She totally takes off her chains and then she runs, jumps over the nerdy kid. He died. She was going to escape, but then she looks back and she comes back inside and she goes, you know what? And she looks up to where those two brothers upstairs are. She grabs a weapon and she heads upstairs. She decides she's done running. Now, this is pretty huge for us in the modern day. There has to come a point when you decide that you're done running, that we collectively are done running away from our oppressors, that we're done running away from the bullies of the world that would, just flex on one or two of us to make an example. We are more in number than the people who rule over us. All right, so she walks up to the monster dude who's sleeping. She holds up the knife and she's about to plunge it down into him. And then they show you the twins on the wall while she's hacking away, just totally just killing the heck out of the monster. And then they cut to the scene of this cop who wasn't in the movie the entire time. And listen to his conversation. I like to listen to movies with the words on the screen because I pick up a lot more. But he says, the last call I had, a panicked guy phoned in saying that a black guy was repairing the waterworks. So what the movie's trying to say is there's an element of racism, essentially. But that's not it, symbolically speaking. The black guy who is repairing the waterworks is code for Mount Meru, which is the Black Madonna, or the black guy, who is fixing the water. The water in our world is going to be fixed. Or a woman who is driving a bus. The bus is the box of our world, the container of our world. The woman who is now driving is going to be the spirit that is filling this world, which will be a feminine spirit. Right now, it's more of a masculine energy or a masculine spirit. But everything's going to flip back around and we're going to return to a female energetic force sort of, being in charge until it balances itself out. So that's the reference to the woman driving the bus. Like, oh, how dare a woman drive a bus, right? It has nothing to do with our politics down here on the little microscopic world that we live in with all of our drama. It has to do with the greater picture of the female energy filling our world once more. Then he says, but once in a blue moon, something serious happens. So there's another reference to the blue moon after they already showed us a blue moon 2 times in this movie, right? Now, the girl escapes. She runs into the cop. He's like, oh my God, what's wrong? What's wrong? Here, get in my car. And he's going to leave this magic forest or whatever and take her to safety, right? But he runs into the mutant hillbilly. He gets out of the car to go try to check on him, and he gets split directly down the middle, cut directly in half. Now, the hillbilly chases after the girl. Now, let me tell you why the cop dies, okay? Usually anybody that sins or anybody that is seen as doing evil or something that is, not morally upright and outstanding, almost always they're the ones that die in the movies, okay? This guy has to do something wrong in order for him to die because the killer is actually a good guy. I know, it's easy to look at these killers in the movies and the horror movies as being bad guys. But remember, we live in an upside down world that gives us everything upside down. So in these movies, these guys are actually doing a service symbolically during the apocalypse. They're there to get rid of bad people, basically, right? Now, why is the cop bad? Not just for being a cop, but earlier, you didn't see this, but this girl was actually in his car. She's a prostitute. And she's like, all right, well, thanks for my money. I'll be going now. So they had to show that scene. There was no need for there to be a prostitute in this cop's car, except for justifying him being brutally murdered by the bad guy in the movie, right? All right, so the girl's in the car. She finally starts the car. She takes off. She was about to escape once more when she decides, you know what? That big monster dude behind me just fell down. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to back up and I'm going to run him over to make sure that he's dead. This is also a huge tip in the post-apocalypse, okay? First and foremost, you have to understand that if you're fighting zombies or Fantazoids or giants or other things, keep in mind the changed conditions of the world that we live in, because I believe we will go through a time where death is harder to come by. It's harder for us to die, right? So things will happen that normally would kill a person because our spirit is overly amplified, people don't die. It's very difficult to die immediately after the apocalypse, which also reminds me of an older 80s movie called Death Becomes Her. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that one. It's super old, but it's exactly the same symbolism where these girls get all messed up, but they don't die. All right. So then at the end, we see the monster and some hillbillies are walking up to the hillbilly monster and he just pushes himself up. He's actually not dead. His brother, who got hacked to pieces and is back in the bedroom, he sits up. Here, let me do it a bit more scarier. Rah! And that's it. So they're not dead. It shows the red light flashing on the monsters, on the mutant monster's face or whatever. That's to show you that the red lights are coming, right? That this is something that happens during the apocalypse when the sky turns red. And that is Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight, Part 1. There's actually a part 2 to this movie that looks really interesting. I might check it out later on. But in the movie, in part 2, from my understanding, they take the bad guys and they actually show you things from their perspective. So they take the monster's perspective in part 2, which is really interesting. Hey, I hope that you all had a good time. I do this segment all the time, Truth in Movies. I also talk about the plasma apocalypse. I've got a lot of playlists on my channel. Totally want everyone to check it out. I like to go back and read the chat so that I can assign mods and so I can see how everyone was doing in the chat as I did my presentation. Go check out my YouTube channel. Check out my website. My website is all about the plasma apocalypse, all about our ancient Oblivion and hidden history. I'm adding to it quite often. And maybe keep an eye out for some JayDreamerZ merch soon to come in the future. I don't know. Oh, I'm almost at 80,000 subscribers right now. Let's double check on that. Hold on. Let's see where we are. I want to do a live count on how many subscribers I have on my channel right now. I'm getting pretty excited the closer we get to like 100,000. I'm holding it in because I'm trying to be very humble about it. And it's also very exciting for me. So let me see. I want to give a huge shout out to everybody who's been so supportive for the past few years as my channel's grown. All right, so right now, drum roll, we are at 79,919 subscribers. So I'm super excited. I just want to say it is an honor. Thank you all so much. I'm glad that I'm just glad to be a part of the Good Vibe Tribe. I'll leave it at that. Right on. Thank you everybody in the chat. Big shout out to everyone who I see right now. Let me give everybody a shout out. Why not? 80,000 subscribers. Everybody deserves a shout out. Why not? Ikiba, Ian, Barry Nelson, Cal, Candy Jones, Don Juan, Dion Sandals, Delphic Maxim, LJ, Gina, Genesis, Hector, Javelin, Jay Warren, Jane Minter, Gemini, Jojo, Josephine Ash, Linda Ray, Martin Haley, Scott Shutt Hats, Sharon Bostock, Spanglish Gamer, Tiffany, Yvonne Van Zarovich, and a whole host of other people that jumped in so they could get a shout out at the last second. Hey, thanks for joining me. I love our journey and I look forward to many more videos. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
To fade away. I try so hard
vast multiverse.
Your powers collide.